Okay, so now we're going to venture into this whole realm of measuring. And you've probably been measuring since you were in kindergarten, which is great. But now we're going to take it 1 or 2 or 3 steps further because there are things like least count, first best guess, and uncertainty that you probably haven't done before. All right, so in order to get started on this series of videos, you need to have in your notebook this sheet that says multiple ruler sheet, and it looks like this. So hopefully you have this. If you don't have this, this would be the time to go onto the website and download it. All right, so let me increase the size of this a bit, and we can just look at this. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about, oops, what happened there? I don't know. Anyway, that's not what I want. Insert a text box. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about anyway is least count, which we call LC, okay? That way you don't have to write this out every time you do it. And what least count is, it's the value, whoops, the value of the space between 2 tick marks. Okay, 2 consecutive tick marks. All right. So the least count doesn't change at different places along the ruler, for example. So put that back up here. Take this, and I'm going to move it in a little. All right. Now, these rulers, see how they kind of have this squiggly line over on the side? That's just to say the ruler keeps going on, but we're just cutting it off so we can do what we want to do. All right, so least count is the value of the space between the 2 tick marks. Or you could say, why can't I get back there? Or you could say, oops, the difference, and in math, you know that difference means what? Subtraction, right? The difference between the value of two consecutive tick marks. All right, so there's 2 different ways for you to look at this. All right, so we'll put a little there and a little there, and now you have your 2 reasons. I might write it out a little longer so that we can fit some other stuff up there later, but whatever you have. All right, so that's least count, and that's all we're going to talk about in this video. What do I want to do? I just want to make that bold, and then we'll move on. All right, so now let's take a look at some of these rulers. Well, let's take a look at the second definition, the difference, so subtraction between the value of 2 consecutive tick marks. So here's 1 tick mark, here's the other. 2 minus 1 is 1. And the value of the space, if we want to look at it with that first definition, it goes from 1 to 2, so this space must be worth 1. In this case, it's decimeters, okay? So the least count here is 1 deciliter, all right? So here's how we can write this. Text box over here. Oops. Oh, that's all right. So least count equals, whoops, equals, nope, 1 decimeter. Okay, that's how we would write it. So we don't have to write out the word least count. And make sure you have the units on there because that's important. All right, so let's take a look down here. And the unit for this scale is centimeters. All right, and we have all these tick marks that are numbered. So let's pick any one of them. 15 minus 14 is 1. 11 minus 10 is 1. 6 minus 5 is 1. So no matter where we go on this ruler, the difference between the consecutive tick marks is always going to be 1. So we would say over here, I'll just duplicate this if I can, or maybe copy and paste. Oh, that's not what I mean. Oh well. Whoa. What is that? No idea what that is. Some weird little thing. All right, so let's do it this way. Insert text box right down here. And so we want to say the least count is 1, but what are the units for this one? Centimeters, so we got to put that on there. All right. Now, let's go to the third one. So in this, how does this one differ from these two? Can you think of any ways, or look there and see any ways that they're different? Well, for one thing, the numbers are really big. So the numbers are larger than the other two. They have tick marks, but they have 3 different size tick marks. There's the larger ones, which kind of match those two. Then there's the smaller one in the middle. What is that smaller one in the middle? What does that usually represent? If you guessed a 5, that's a good guess, exactly. So that sort of medium one in the middle, usually representing a 5, and then these tiny, tiny ones. So in order to do this a little bit better, I'm going to scan, and I'm going to go in a little bit. Okay. So actually, let me try something else. Ooh, maybe that'll work. Ooh, I think that will work. All right, so we have our 3 scales. We have our least counts for those first 2. Now, what we did here is we took the printed number 2 and the printed number 1. We subtracted them. The least count was 1 decimeter. Down here, we took the printed number 17, subtracted 16. The difference is 1. Our least count is 1 centimeter. Now here, you might be tempted to say, okay, well, here's 160. I'm going to subtract 150. So the answer is 10. And let's see what the units are on this one. Units are millimeters. Okay? So, however, if we go back up to our definition, it's not about the printed numbers. It's about the tick marks. Okay? So the value of the space between 2 consecutive tick marks, the difference between the value of 2 consecutive tick marks. So nowhere in here does it say a numbered line. In fact, the lines don't have to have numbers on them at all. So if we go back down to this third one, yeah, we can see that this is 160 and that's 170 and that's fine. But going back to what we talked about, the medium lines, this line right here, for example, if this is 160 and this is 170, what's this one? Right, exactly, 165. All right, does it have a number on it? No. Why doesn't it have a number on it? If you guess because it's way too crowded, you would be absolutely right. If you tried to write in 161, 162, 160, nobody could read anything. It'd be craziness. So we have all these other lines, but they don't have numbers on them, but that doesn't mean they don't have value. All right, so let me move this over just a little bit more and see if I can zoom in any more. Ooh, wow. Well, maybe this will work for us. Oh, yeah, there we go. Wonderful. A little blurry, but you get the gist. Okay, so let's take a, you can see up here. So here's 170, here's 180, so here's 175. So what's the tick mark to the left of it? What's its number? What number would be there if we could number them all? 174. And then here, 173, 172, 171, and then we get to the 170. So those are the tick marks. We just have these numbers on here for, ease of reading. So if I said, all right, what is the least count of this? You would not say 180 minus 170 is 10. You would not say that because those are not adjacent tick marks. This one here, and then you have all these other ones, and then this one over here. So it's not by number, it's by tick mark. So if this is 175, and the one to the right of that is 176, 176 minus 175 is what? 1, exactly. So if we, whoops, don't know what I did. Oh, here we go. We could take that then. We know that the least count is 1, but what unit goes with that? It's 1 millimeter. All right, so just looking at these three, why do you think it's important? Whoops. Why do you think it's important then that the units go on the number? Because if they're all 1 without a unit, then you could visualize them all being identical, that the least count of each of these was identical, which in terms of the 1 is true, but the size of the unit is very different. This unit, the decimeter, is huge compared to the centimeter, which is huge compared to the millimeter. So you have to have those units on. So just as a wrap up of this, we'll go back to our definitions. And whichever one you like better, that's one you use, or you can even make up one of your own as long as it works. It's the value of the space between two consecutive means side by side, tick marks. So the value of this space is 1 decimeter. The value of this space between the 14 and the 15 centimeters is 1 centimeter. And the value of the space between the 160 and the 161 is going to be 1 millimeter. Or if you prefer to do the math out, which is totally fine, it's the difference, subtraction, between the value of the two consecutive, again, side by side, tick marks. 2 minus 1 is 1. 15 minus 14 is 1. 145 minus 144 is 1. So you'll be doing some of that practice, but keep track of the sheet because we're actually going to come back to the sheet and discuss first best guess and uncertainty as well on this same sheet. All right, so thanks for listening.